Welcome every viewer on this channel. Today we are blessed and we are privileged to have Dr. Elijah ACHOCH, who is going to speak to us on this episode of Story YANGU. So we are going to get more about Dr. Elijah, and we are so glad to have you, Dr. Elijah. Thank you. Mr. Elijah, who is Dr. Elijah? Who is Dr. Elijah? We want to know more about you.
That's an interesting question. Dr. Elijah Ochieng ACHOCH, that's my official name. And Dr. Elijah is a loving husband, is a father, and is also a friend. And when I say this is that I am married to my lovely wife, Betty ACHOCH, and we have two lovely daughters. The elder one is called Mildred Sakina, and that is important. Her name comes from my mother, who was also called Mildred Florence. So she has the two names, Mildred Florence Sakina.
Okay.
And the last one is called Edwina Mapenzi, and she is named after her grandmother. So we are really a modern family, if I can say so. Just two children and of course my wife.
Yes.
Right. Perhaps again, when you're asking who is Elijah, sometimes pronounced as Elijah, or my parents, my parents pronounce it as Elijah.
Elijah, the prophet.
So, yeah, the prophet. I have also siblings. That is, in the family, we were 8 of us. 3 have passed on. The others are still there. The eldest was Edwin Herbert Sport ACHOCH, and he passed on. The follower to Edwin is Dr. Alice Mwajuma Abok, followed by Monica Aoko ACHOCH, and then Lucy Young, also she passed on. Then we have David Owino, who I immediately follow. I'm the 6th.
Okay.
Yeah, in this line. And my follower is Lillian Achieng. And then our last born, also who passed on, is Caroline Knight ACHOCH. So much as is a taboo, Calvin, to count the family members.
The family members, yeah.
I think the exposure that we have had in terms of Western education and being a global citizen, I don't think anything negative will come out in terms of listing
there.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So you say that you have 2 children and you have been in this marriage for how long? Are you qualified now to be marriage counselor?
That's a difficult question, Calvin, because I have been a counselor, business counselor, and counseling is a training. So I would be very hesitant really to purport to be a marriage counselor. But I can share experiences with people who are getting into marriage. I think the experience that I have are adequate, more than 30 years of marriage. And I think if there is any person entering into this holy matrimony, perhaps 1 or 2 things might be of assistance to such a person. But we have professional counselors who can actually do that better than me. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As a family, I know everyone has a different personality. When you look at yourself,
yes,
which personality do you have?
My personality, I think, is multifaceted in the sense that I cannot really say this is the personality that I have. It has developed as I've grown up. I started up as what can be described as an introvert, somebody who kept to himself in most cases. And I did find refuge in books. And therein, perhaps my background comes in because I discovered that there was a lot of knowledge in terms of books. And reading through eventually gave me the confidence of coming out. Whether then I became an extrovert, I'm not very sure, but I am sure that I have been able to stand before crowds in terms of teaching, in terms of talking to them, giving them information. And that has given me what I can then think of the changes in terms of personality. It's a difficult question really to pin it down. Perhaps it is easier if you were to ask somebody what kind of personality is Dr. ACHOCH.
So yeah,
because sometimes we are biased. You might think this is what people think or perceive you to be, but it becomes something else.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Doctor, can you just give us your journey of education? We call you a doctor, but I want to know more about you.
Yeah, sometimes I wonder whether when this question is asked, you go directly to, well, I'm a doctor. That means that I've done all these other courses, but no. My journey is I did my Kenya Certificate of Primary Education. Basically, that was in two places. And I think this is important so that people do not think that you are just a genius. Yeah, the first time I did not go through, and that was in Kakamega.
You failed exam.
I don't know whether I failed, Calvin, but I did get the requisite marks, which of course is regarded as a failure. So that was Matende Primary School in Matende Primary School in Kakamega, in a place called Shirere Isuha. Then I repeated class 7 then in a place called Chebwai. Chebwai was an SDA sponsored school, and it used to be called Broderick Falls, which is now Webuye Falls, when we are Africanizing this. So from there, I did my class 7, and this time I made it. I came to Nairobi. In Nairobi, I went to Dr. Ribeiro Parkland's secondary school. It's still there. From Form 1 to Form 4, that is 74 to 78. I then proceeded to Shimolatewa in Mombasa for my advanced level. We used to have an exam called East African Advanced Certificate of Education. Okay. So that was Form 5 and Form 6. I passed those exams. In 1980, I joined the University of Nairobi for my undergraduate and graduated in 1984. We had a whole year in 1982 that we spent at home. 82 is an important year for those who might be wondering what happened that from 80 to 84. I think there was an attempted coup and we were sent home for almost 1 year. Then I joined the government. I started working, but in 1992, I was lucky enough to be sponsored by my employer to go to Manchester for a Master of Science in Human Resource Management. Okay. I then came back, and in 2014, I started my journey for a PhD, which took 6 years. I'm usually surprised when I read sometimes people who say they did their PhDs in 1 year or a few months. I don't think that is true. So from there, I then graduated with a PhD in human resource management, but my thesis was on factors that hinder transformation of the public service reforms.
Okay.
My background is reforms. That was the last things that I did, and later on perhaps we'll discuss that. But Calvin, I want also to share with you that apart from the academics, I also have professional qualifications. I'm a certified public secretary, CPS-K. That is a professional course. I'm also a certified ethics officer, which I got from South Africa. My number is 131, if you wanted to find out.
You can find it out, yeah.
Yes, and then I'm also a member of the Institute of Human Resource Management and a member of the Kenya Institute of Management. I also was privileged to work for the Kenya National Examination Council and rose up to being a chief examiner on the area of human resource management. And also I was again privileged to work for the Public Service Commission and rose up to the chief examiner level in terms of examinations for administrative officers and also proficiency examinations. So without blowing my trumpet, I think I've got a solid background both academically and professionally in terms of these issues. Yes.
Congratulations, Dr.
Thank you.
Maybe there's a young person looking at you and getting your achievement, and maybe they think that either you come from a very privileged family, or was it your determination, hard work, or was it a privilege?
Yeah,
the system.
Yeah, Calvin, remember when I was talking about my schools, definitely these are not the Cinderella kind of schools or bread and butter. My schools, unfortunately, I've never featured even the first 1,000 whenever schools are ranked. And it worries me sometimes because you would want to point out to a friend, hey, look, this is the school that I went to. Yeah. So through sheer hard work and that push of saying I must also prove myself that I'm not a child of a lesser God. That,
not a child of a lesser God.
Yes.
That's a big point.
Yeah. And that we were given our brains to make sure that you can exploit what you have, the talents that you have. And any young person watching this conversation should know that hard and smart work pays. Hard work means that you have to make sure that there are certain things in life that you have to deny yourself. Smart work means that you have to be tech savvy and you have to be a global person in the sense that we talk about globalization, that the world now is a global village. And based on that, whatever happens in Kenya is most likely going to impact what is happening in Moscow or in New York or Brussels. So that wide space that we have is important. And constantly to be looking for knowledge, have a curious mind that you want to know why does this thing happen, not only being a consumer of things that happen. So the question is, are you able then to ask yourself, why do these things happen? Therein lies the secret.
Thank you, thank you. Smart work pays, and you are not a child of a lesser God. I'm very sure my youth mnachukua hizo lines and they will totally help you in your personal life. Daktari, when you do HR,
yes,
was it your passion or what forced you to do it?
I think I was meant to be a HR person. Let me just give you some idea of my background in HR. I am an adjunct lecturer, well, sometimes called part-time, but when you want to feel very big, you can use the term adjunct.
The adjunct, okay.
And I have been an adjunct lecturer at Strathmore University. I have been an adjunct lecturer at Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology, and also the University of Nairobi. And I've also taught at Kenya Institute of Management, and the Institute of Human Resource Management. Now, you've asked me the passion about human resource management.
Yes.
Last week I was in Mombasa, and I had been called at random really to be part of a panel. And one of the things that I said was that I eat and I sleep and I think human resource management.
Human resource management.
And everybody asked, what does that mean? It just meant that I have the passion of the human people management. That in an organization, if you read any good book of human resource management, the first sentence that comes out is that the most important resource in any organization is the human resource. But strangely enough, when it comes to restructuring organizations, either in terms of there's lack of money, the first resource that usually takes the brunt is that human resource.
Human resource, okay.
Because you'll hear of layoffs, people losing their jobs. And I think like right now, currently as we are talking about the COVID-19, most organizations have shaded off quite a number of those human resources that are the most critical in that. But some of my milestones in human resource management are as follows. That in the 1996, 97, a group of us used to meet at the present office of the deputy president. It used to be called Shell BP House on first floor. We had people like the late William Gitobu, who was the then CEO. We had the late Muteshi, who was also part of the team that was talking about that. People like Kenneth Kaunda, Samson Oseru. And we discussed. I had just come from Britain in 1992 with a Master of Science in Human Resource Management. And I was young and restless. I felt that we needed to professionalize this area of human resource management. At that time, the term human resource management was never being used. We were using the term personnel management. And we thought that the human resource management had a ring in it, and it was adopted. Unfortunately, sometimes it is just the switch of the name from personnel management to human resource management. There is no underpinning philosophical thinking on why you move from personnel management to human resource management. So based on that, we started a school, the Institute of Human Resource Management, and this gave birth to quite a number of institutions. Like I do remember then that I was teaching at Railway Training Institute, and then the Vision Institute of Professionals. So that was a journey, and eventually I did also start my own school, which unfortunately wound up because I don't think that when you're starting a school, you should be out of that place. You should be in it. That was an experience. So later on, we then decided, after seeing quite a number of people, students who had the higher national diploma for human resource management. Through collaboration with the JQuat, we then introduced the Master of Science in Human Resource Management at Jomo Kenyatta University. And then we had now a critical mass, people with masters, but people wanted to go ahead. Then again, we sat down and came up with a PhD in human resource management. So you can see my journey revolves around human resource management.
Yes, that's true. That's true. Yeah. So what motivates you? Or you have the passion.
Yes.
But right now, as you see it, what motivates you to go deep in human resource?
Yes, I've seen quite a number of my students who are manning quite a number of important institutions. I think 2 weeks back, the human resource manager of Safari Park Hotel called me and was telling me, Mwalimu, you did this to me. And I can say without any fear of contradiction that most of my students are manning some of the 5-star institutions in this country, both in the public sector and also in private sector. And when you meet with your student, one of the things that really motivates you is to see somebody that you are able to mold into somebody who is able now then to almost replicate what you're doing. And the other thing is to see this concept being embraced now by government and the public service, and we are some of those unsung heroes who you feel like, okay, we are there. And I must say I'm very happy for you to have identified a need really to expose this and to see the faces behind some of the things that are happening. Because one of the tragedies of I don't know whether it's Africa or Kenya, is only you are celebrated when you have died. That's when people say, oh yeah, he was such a good person, he was such a brain.
We have a good, big eulogy on that day.
Yes. Right.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Dr. Lee. With that experience that you have and the knowledge that you have and the passion, can you mention some of the areas that you have worked, either in private and in government?
Yes. It's interesting. Every time I'm asked this question, and I say I've not worked any other place apart from the public service for 34 years.
Okay.
But with all these qualifications, why didn't you move to either a UN body or an NGO or a private sector? But I said, when you are offering service, some of us get some kind of high or some kind of motivation when you see you are serving the public. And that's the term public service.
Public service, okay.
And I have risen through the ranks. I joined the public service in November 1984. And from there, the only time I left the mainstream public service is when I joined the National Police Service Commission as the CEO. And then I came back again to the public service. So I can mention a few offices that I worked in. I spent a lot of my time in the Ministry of Labor and Human Resource for 14 years. But I started in the then Ministry of Transport and Communication. And my first posting was in Nyeri. So any person who is watching this and is in Nyeri would know that I worked there. There's a small, actually there's a river, it's not a small river. It has just escaped my mind, the name of that. Thereafter, another place that is important in terms of this journey was the Cabinet Office. I worked in the Cabinet Office, the Reform Secretariat, and then I joined the Office of the Prime Minister when we were transferred as a Reform Secretariat. some of the tools and instruments that we developed in the public service are like strategic plans, the staff appraisal systems, the individual work planning, and of course some of the key policy papers, like the economic recovery strategy for wealth and employment creation, which, because of the length of the name, eventually we called it ERS, that is Economic Recovery Strategy. Now this gave birth to two important papers. One was the Vision 2030, and the second one was the Constitution. So when one looks at that journey and the impact that it has made, it makes me feel that serving in the public service, where you touch the hearts and minds of the citizenry, is a big plus. And that is the very reason that I have been in the public service all through. And then I've always said that not all of us are entrepreneurs. Some of us like to work for the public. We are better workers when we are employed somewhere. Then there are those who have the skills of being entrepreneurs, who would want to be self-employed. So there must be a balance between those. You cannot have a country that is running without a public service. So, yeah, so public service is important. It is part and parcel of my life. Yes.
Thank you. When you look back, have you impacted life? Is there any person that can say Dr. Elijah Achoch changed my life?
Yes, and this is important, that first of all, if you met any of my students, remember I did say that I have been an adjunct lecturer in quite a number of blue chip institutions, and sometimes out of arrogance I say, if you haven't attended this these universities, then you have not gone to any university. But I think that is by the way. I think those students of mine who are watching right now, I do hope that I taught you well. I think that is important. And in terms of the public service, some of the tools and instruments that we introduced that have really changed the lives of Kenyans. For instance, when we started, we didn't have SMART goals in the public service. SMART in the sense that there was specific, measurable, attainable, and time-bound, and result-oriented. We came with strategies, strategic plans, and people were saying, but these are meant for the private sector. How can we talk about strategy within government? Calvin, one thing that people must note is that when you talk about a bureaucracy, there are three institutions that must of necessity be bureaucratic. One is the army, because there must be rules to be followed. There must be commands that they should be followed. The second one is a public service. Rules, regulations, and orders must be followed. Then the other one is where you come from. That is religion.
Okay.
Yeah, it's also bureaucratic. And sometimes, and I hope that you will agree with me, that if you were to draw the organogram of heaven, you'll find that at the very top is God. On the right hand side, there is Jesus. On the left, there was somebody who wanted really to sit there, called Lucifer. And of course, there are the angels in all those boxes. So you don't interfere with that. You don't question. And remember, and I might be misinterpreting the Bible, that Lucifer, who was a very beautiful and had a very good voice from what I've read, wanted to almost challenge the organogram. And based on that, I think he was thrown to the earth. And that is why some of those things are there. Now, there have been changes that have been occurring in institutions. We are talking about the 21st century, where we talk about the fourth industrial revolution. And here, we are talking of issues like artificial intelligence. We are talking about robotics. We are talking about drones. And we are talking about virtual meetings. Remember that COVID, some of the advantages, if any, was to make us leapfrog some of the stages of technology. Because people are saying, yes, there would be video conferencing, that we would be having working at home. These were concepts that we used to teach in class, but we never knew at what time they would come. And suddenly, COVID came, and these things we had to adopt. When you're talking about now, we want to Zoom, we want to webinar, we want to do all these kinds of things. So technology in the 21st century, and also the information technology kind of companies are not bureaucratic.
Okay.
They are, and perhaps there's something that is happening which we need to study. Why is Facebook making so much money? Why is Microsoft making so much money? Why are all these making so much money? Maybe there is a need to study that and see what is it that the public service can also borrow so that they are efficient and effective. Because what you are holding now in your hand is part of that technology.
Oh yeah,
yes, and it is easier. I'm still at that manual stage where I still have papers, but one can easily scroll through and find out that.
That's
so
true.
Impacting people, I want to be humble enough to believe that I have done that, both at individual levels, in academic institutions, and also at the workplace.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Lee. And now, even as we conclude, there's a phrase which we say that it's our time to eat. You have told me that you are in the office of the Prime Minister. I hope that's the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga.
Yes.
And you are in a police commission.
Yes.
What did you do to your people?
Yeah.
There's others crying that you did not do anything to them.
Calvin, it would have been unfair if you didn't ask this question. Because really, when psychologically you have one of your own, in the Kenyan psyche or mindset, whenever there are any appointments in public offices, the first thing is to read that name and say that we on way to. That is our person. And psychologically, you can just be satisfied that one of your own is holding a high office. So psychologically, when my names are usually maybe read Elijah ACHOCH and I don't put Ochieng, so people think, is this a Turkana because we have some some relationships, or is this an Nubian? Until you discover, oh, actually, he is one of our own, and people get happy. Now, the pressure is on, usually for public servants. You hold an office, you are a professional, and there are policies and codes of regulations on how to undertake recruitment. Public service jobs are advertised. That is the first thing. They are advertised, and when they are advertised, it means that there is a vacancy that either has been created or has been left open, or and secondly, there is money to pay for the salaries of in that position. And it really is frustrating. The unemployment levels in the country is alarming, and for sure, people would expect that when you are in the office of the Prime Minister, then, which is now a defunct office, you should be able to give the whole of your village employment. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. There were instances we know, and most of these have been done by politicians, in which you can bring really a whole village in terms of recruitment of the police, the recruitment in the army. But these now are things that are no longer there. Remember, our constitution talks about transparency and accountability. If you look at, I think, Article 2 on national values. Otherwise, those days when you could bring in a lorry the villagers and just tell them, employ these people, are long gone. But I would encourage my people really to take me as a role model, that hard and smart work pays. And that we should be able to work and also apply for the positions that are advertised. I know that there are people that we say discouraged unemployed. People who, when they read the papers, nasema hii imeshapeana. Hakuna haja hata ya kuapply. I would encourage the youth and those who are not in employment that jobs are there. Look at your skill sets. What are the new skills that the labor market wants? Are the skills that you're having obsolete? Are the papers that you have gone to school, you need to add other skills, and especially in terms of technology. I think that is something that is important that nowadays we must look at and arm ourselves with this. My working in some of these high offices have given me networks. Networks in the sense that I do have people that I know from almost all sectors of the economy and all parts of the country that would be useful when we network, or what sometimes is called the old school approach, where maybe you would tell somebody, can you consider this person because he or she is qualified and has got the requisite qualifications that are needed. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Daktari.
Yeah.
And we have learned a lot from you, and I believe that our viewers have learned a lot. And your last statement as we end this episode. Some of your hobby, some of you are the music you love, or you are just a very boring person in this world. Do you enjoy life? Do you have a music that you love?
Yeah, Calvin, it would be interesting to know that I come from a very musical family. My elder brother, the late Edwin Sport, owned three bands. There was a Special Liwanza. This was a Congolese band. No, it came in as Boma Liwanza, and then they split and formed Special Liwanza. And out of that, that gave growth also to Somajeko. Now, at some point, I was toying with the idea of joining a band. It looked very interesting. If it was not for my mother, who thought that bands were basically for Wakora, perhaps by now I would have been strumming a guitar. But growing up in such an environment, I love rumba, especially Congolese rumba, and I follow it very closely. I know that we are celebrating the death of Tabule, I think 8 years ago. He passed on. And when you look at Franco, those were really two big musicians. But of course, in East Africa, you talk about Mbaraka Mwinshehe. And in Kenya, I used to like Luna Kidi of what was the name of this person. But it is interesting that in Luna Kidi, the bass player, the person who was playing bass, is the Minister for Education. Okay. Do you know who the Minister for Education is?
Of which country?
Of Kenya. Okay. That is Magoha.
Magoha.
Yes. So don't look at people and think that they are not.
Okay.
Yeah. So for me, really, I like music. I have a huge collection of music, and I spend most of my time sometimes listening to music. Definitely in terms of reading, I do a lot of readings. Any new book that comes out it makes me feel like I really need to do that. And currently, what I'm reading right now, I think is here. I think if you can zoom on this, this is the Oburu Oginga, In the Shadow of My Father. And autobiography. I think it just came out the other day. Okay. So I've not gone very far with it, but I intend. It's very readable. The fonts are very big, so I think it's something that within a short while I'll have finished. And you did ask, perhaps people have asked me whether I've written a book. I haven't written a book, but I have so many articles. For any person who is interested in terms of issues of human resource and management and leadership, you can Google Dr. Elijah ACHOCH. I contribute to Business Today. That is an magazine that has most of my articles. And then you can also visit my Facebook page. There are quite a number of interesting issues that when the spirits comes in, I scribble a few things. Yeah, that would be also interesting.
Well, we are so grateful, Dr. Elijah ACHOCH, and I believe that you are a very resourceful person, that this country should ensure that we use you during this generation. And we thank you for the impact that you have made in life, especially in public works. And I believe that we are going to meet you in the next episode, where now you are going to tell us more about your retirement and your current job as the chairman of public service of Siaya County. So we are so much glad to have you, and thank you for allowing us to host you today and speak to all our viewers. And I was your host, Calvin Cornel. I thank you all for being part of this episode, and I believe that you have subscribed to this channel. I thank the Makogwell production. They have done a very good job to ensure that we bring this episode to you at your comfort zone. Otherwise, may God bless you. Let's meet in the next episode, where we are going to get more about Dr. Elijah on his retirement and his work at Siaya County as the chairman of public works. May God bless you. Have a nice time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr.